This is the Moonlight Graham Show, a freewheeling conversation with the role players, the underdogs, and guys with flat-out great stories in sports.
Hello and welcome back to the Moonlight Graham Show, and it is once again Kentucky Derby week. And just like last year, we have a nefarious, notorious, anonymous professional gambler coming onto the podcast to tell all of his best gambling stories. If you remember last year's episode, this guy, he's very big into horse racing. He actually has an ownership stake in multiple racehorses. And last year on the podcast, the week before the Kentucky Derby, if you remember, Bob Baffert's Medina Spirit won the Kentucky Derby, and then Medina Spirit ended up having the title stripped from her for doping, and Baffert has been suspended from horse racing ever since. Well, if you go back and listen to our podcast last year, our professional gambler predicted this outcome the week before the Kentucky Derby. So, of course, we've got to get him back on the podcast to predict this year's Kentucky Derby. And so our professional gambler, we, of course, do not use his real name. So he goes by the name Tom Hagan here on the pod. But like I said, he is a guy that has done high-stakes card playing. He's done high-stakes gambling. He has an ownership stake in multiple racehorses right now. And so he's the perfect guy to come on the pod this week of the Kentucky Derby to not only predict where you need to be putting your money if you're betting on the Kentucky Derby, but also give us an insight into the horse racing world, which is such an interesting world, one that I don't know much about. And with all of the great feedback that we got on the podcast last year, we knew we had to do this again, and I felt like we needed to go even deeper into the horse racing world this time around. And I really hope that this is something that we can do each and every year around the Derby, because we had such great feedback. We had great numbers from this pod last year. So I think you guys are going to really enjoy this one again with Moonlighter Tom Hagan. Of course, before we get to the episode, we got to give a shout out to the great people over at The People's Company, over at peoplescompany.com, Andrew Zelmer, Matt Adams, who's getting married a week from this weekend. So Matty Adams is almost off the market. Shout out to Matt Adams, Andrew Zelmer. They're the best farm management, farm real estate guys in the business. Check them out. If you're looking to buy a farm, if you're looking to sell a farm, contact the people over at The People's Company. They're the best in the business. And enjoy today's episode with Moonlighter Tom Hagan. But before we get to our interview, Moonlighters, are you or someone you know moving down to Kansas City? Well, if you are, the one realtor that we trust and that you need to be calling is the great Brian Sandvig. As you well know, Brian Sandvig is our producer here on the podcast, and there is not a better residential real estate advisor down in the Kansas City marketplace than Brian Sandvig. Call Brian Sandvig, shoot him a text. Hey, DM us on social media. We'll get you connected with Brian if you can't find him on all the socials, but he is there and he is active, and he is your Kansas City realtor, so give him a call. Tom Hagan, the gambling aficionado that we brought on last year, you are back in the Moonlight Graham Show seat. Tom, thanks for coming back on the pod.
Hey, thanks for having me. Yeah, it seemed like things played out pretty well last year after our conversation.
So last year, we were having this conversation at the exact same time. And our conversation last year, you were predicting, we were talking a lot about Baffert being dirty, doping horses, and you predicted one of Baffert's horses would win and then have the title stripped from him. How'd you feel about that call once it actually happened?
Yeah, I remember texting you after I saw the headline just to basically be like, I told you so. But it wasn't so much of I knew that was going to happen. It was like in a perfect world to make me feel better about the sport. That's what we want to have happen. And sure enough, it did, so the bettors got their money if they bet Baffert. The sport's better off that he got caught. So we'll see what this year brings.
And I think Medina Spirit is now dead.
Yeah.
Do you think, and I don't follow horse racing all that close, but did doping have a lot to do with Medina Spirit dying, or is it more of a freak injury type of thing?
Well, so you can look at Baffert and even his sires, right? When they go to the breeding shed, don't necessarily do that well, which makes you scratch your head on how Baffert, they can kill it on the track, not so much in the breeding shed. So Medina Spirit, gone. Also in the last couple of years, Arrogate, who was one of Baffert's there was probably a year there where Arrogate was the fastest horse on the planet. What did he make it? 2 years in the breeding shed, 3 years, died as well. So there's horses that'll breed till they're, 20, 22. And his horses can't even get off the track or, can't live to be 7 or 8.
They're like WWE wrestlers that are dying at 45 after 2 decades of steroid use. Yeah,
great run. The fans don't care. Well, in the WWE, standpoint, the other side of it, fans do care. It's the last year has been pretty crazy with the whole Baffert thing. You don't find that many apologists for him.
So after, not only did you get the call right on the podcast last year, but right after that, it seemed like your horse went on a winning streak and started winning a bunch of events. What was that like as a guy that has an ownership stake in a horse, see this horse go on a winning streak, and all of a sudden you are in the Bob Baffert role?
That was a crazy year. So we won multiple graded stakes, had a filly go up and hit the board in a grade 2 at Saratoga, which we've now retired her and actually bred her to essential quality. So yeah, after winning a couple graded stakes, our horse actually, we were going for 3 graded stakes in a row, came up a little weird in a race, sent him back to Lexington, had a little bone chip. So we got that cleaned up. God, was that September, October? And so he's actually, we gave him plenty of time. Vet said, let's do the simple procedure, give him 60 days. We gave him, I think, 90 days. Have been really good coming back with his training. So he's actually, I think, going to run. We were going to shoot for Derby week. There was actually a stake on Friday is the Ali Sheba. He kicked his stall and bruised his hock a little bit. So we're actually going to wait and bring him back on the 12th in an allowance race. So hopefully we have a similar summer as last. We haven't acquired any new horses. We have a filly who broke her maiden down at
what's broke her maiden down mean?
It means you're a maiden until you win your first race. So break your maiden means you win your first race. So she wins her first race, and then she had kind of a minor injury. So she is actually in Lexington as well. It'll probably be 3 more weeks before we send her back to Churchill to get training again.
These athletes, and I'm talking about horses here, they're incredible athletes. They're big, they're strong, and they seem to be so fragile. What is it with racehorses that everybody's getting hurt all the time?
That's tough. Some people point to breeding, which,
like the inbred thing.
That's not really that big of a deal, like in terms of having the effects on this. But, if you look back, let's say 40 years ago, okay, they ran the horses like every 2-3 weeks. I mean, when you pull up past performances, the list is a mile long, okay? And if you look at speed figures or even times, you could make the argument they were better athletes back then, right? And they pushed them a lot harder. Where today, if you go to like a trial, let's say you go to Churchill and you go on the backside, like they have like mobile spas. Like, they have, do you want your horse to go, do like, what do they call that? Electro massage, therapy. Okay. Do you want it to go, to the chiropractor? There's like, they baby these things, like you wouldn't believe now, to where back then, they probably didn't even have scanning equipment, to where when there was an injury to even be able to identify it 40, 50 years ago. And these things ran.
Seabiscuit ran like all the time and forever.
Yeah. Now, so there's so much money in breeding. If you go win a few grade 1s, you hang it up because you're going to be sold for 8 figures. Your ownership doesn't want to risk it. That's tough part of the game at this point. Now it will probably it's kind of like the stock market. I mean, if you correlate auction prices and horse racing to the stock market, I mean, 2009, 10, and 11, you could have bought things for 25 to 35 cents on the dollar. Now if it has four legs, you can sell it for $100,000. I mean, it's just crazy.
It's almost like we're talking about NBA players. Like your take on horse racing, modern horse racing is like the take on the modern NBA compared to like back in the previous generation where everybody wanted to play 82 games and like you just wanted to be out there every night. And now players are taking at least 10 to 20 games off, and you have some guys taking, like the Ben Simmons thing. He's not even playing the entire season and still getting paid.
Yeah, and I don't want to say that's my opinion on part of you see these injuries and also the media as well, right? So we can if a horses get hurt, horses go down, that's just part of the game. But now we can that piece of news can get to every inch, can get to every single person, and we can talk about it for as long as we want. Or if it's on a Friday and it's in, mediocre horse, no one probably remembers it after about Tuesday, so it just depends on the situation.
How close are you to having a horse in the Derby?
The tough part is the mare that we keep buying horses out of, which has been fantastic. So like the first one did really well. At one point, we actually had $1 million offer on it that we turned down. You
turned down $1 million offer?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Are you regretting that, or is it turning out to be a good decision?
No, I mean, if we were to do it 100 times over again, we'd still. So her first race, she won by 6 lengths, and her second race, she won by 9.5. And so 2 for 2, we get $1 million offer, and it's just like, that'd be great. I guess I had 2 thoughts on it. One, if you go on and win, let's say the Kentucky Oaks with her, you pretty much just have to quit the sport at that point. Cause it's like, what's the point? You already had if you're going to sell them every time you get a good horse, what's the point?
Right.
Unless you're just in it for the money. So yeah, I don't think in that scenario you ever sell unless you are just doing this for financial reasons. And she still went on to, she earned over 300,000. We could have sent her to auction and probably got, I don't know, however many more hundreds of thousands of dollars. Instead, we kept her, bred her. So next early March, we'll probably have a foal from her.
Nice. And what can you sell that foal for?
It just depends. So the sire we went to, but it'll be probably, I would think, pretty valuable. The sire we went to cost $75,000 to breed to. So we weren't like, we went to a real sire.
Yeah.
So
get back to our question. How close are you to the Derby? Do you feel
right.
like,
so I really got off topic there. So what I was getting at was they're all kind of late bloomers, right? So like you have to be able to kind of get started as a 2-year-old or at least a little in your 2-year-old year. And then, really kind of blossom as the qualifying races come up for the Derby. So I think he ran the one that won multiple graded stakes last year. I think he broke his maiden in like late March, right? And it's just a little bit too late. He's just kind of a late bloomer, right? Where he physically wasn't ready as a 2-year-old, and then even like January and February wasn't quite ready. So you'll see that sometimes. In the fillies is, the previous one was the same way. Like I think it was like early March or late February. Yeah. So since we haven't acquired anything new, we have 3 horses, but no, nothing close now. Like last year, I thought that if we could have got him ready soon enough, that he could have made it. And I think he showed later in the year when, he won a $500,000 race, he won a $300,000 race. In where he stacks up in the horses that were his, the same age, definitely in the top 20, to get you into the Derby.
Right. So let's talk about the Derby this year, right? So Baffert is out, But as you told me before we started recording, actually Baffert still has two horses still in the Derby. How's that happen?
So still two in. So he's out, but Messier and Taiba, two will probably be pretty short. I mean, you're probably looking at your third and fifth probably betting favorites, somewhere in there.
So is he still training them? Does he own them? What's the
No,
deal
so
with that?
he doesn't own them, but it gets worse. So the guy who owned Medina Spirit goes to the auction with Baffert. There's a video of it, and he goes ahead and pays $1.7 million for Taiba.
Wow.
So he spends that money, and then I don't want to be wrong on this, but I didn't. I believe it was the Saudi Gold Cup that Baffert. So Baffert trains Country Grammar, owned by the same guys, Don Racing, and they win a $12 million horse race. And then this guy gets in the interview afterwards, gets on in the interview, is yelling, saying, that is Bob Baffert and he's the best. And, and that, the whole, the world of horse racing has just got their hands over their eyes. Like, are you kidding me? So I've kind of lost track. There's so much court shit you can't keep up. He's appealed this thing so many times. So he's suspended. So I don't know, after appeal number 78 gets thrown out, he then turns his two horses, because if they run in qualifiers with him as a trainer, they can't earn any points. So he turns them over to an old assistant trainer of his. They both run in the Santa Anita Derby, and they get first and second. So conveniently, they both punch their ticket to the Derby. So here we are, and you've got the same owner for Medina Spirit who owns one of them. If Taiba wins, it would be terrible. And the owners in Messier are I don't want to say they're just as bad, but when all this went on, kind of the horse racing world, there was a lot of pressure on the other owners to pull their horses from Baffert. And the owners of Messier are the rest of the owners who, I don't know if I want to say it looked like shit, but they just stuck with him, or basically their stance was, we don't care. We think he's the best trainer. So that's where we're going to put our money, which I think is a terrible stance, where it's we don't really care about the athletes or the game,
So Baffert's still got two of the top five favorites, but I don't think either one of those is the number one favorite heading in, right?
No, neither one is. So Taiba issue there is, he's the only horse ever to win the Santa Anita Derby after just one race. He ran a maiden special weight one. They threw him in the Santa Anita Derby, and he won. First horse to ever do that. So coming into the Derby, so people made a big deal about Justify years ago because, what was the stat? He came in and he never ran as a 2-year-old, and he didn't break his maiden until, I don't remember what it was, February or March or something. And so, people said, you can't win the Derby. No one's ever done that. He did it. Taiba, with only 2 races, is Justify on more steroids. It would be insane if he won, but he looked incredible in the Santa Anita Derby. I will say Messier did all the heavy lifting there. So there was another Forbidden Kingdom, another really fast horse was in that race, and Messier went out and they kind of hooked up early and threw down, and then Taiba was able to kind of come clean up the mess at the end and win the race. It would be horrible if one of those two horses won. Just terrible.
I see that there's a Mo Donegal within maybe one of the top 8 favorites or so. Is that Donegal Racing out of Iowa?
Yeah, so I know that their ownership group changes, but it's Jerry Crawford, I believe, is the attorney from Des Moines area, or I don't remember.
Sounds good to me. I don't know.
Yeah, I've just heard him. Who did I hear? I heard him do an interview with the TDN writers room about 2 months ago. It's pretty good. So yeah, I think they've got quite a few from Des Moines and across the country, but they have a real shot. I'm not betting on him, but they have a real shot. They have, I believe it's trained by Pletcher. So going in, he's going to take money. They have a real shot at winning. So good for them. I did hear in one of his interviews, he made the comment years ago that, when they go to buy horses from a breeding standpoint, they try to figure out, it's easier to figure out who can't win the Kentucky Derby when you're buying horses and stay away from those and trying to just figure out who can.
Yeah.
I think they have a good mindset, and their group was really overachieved. So they have a real shot. And then the favorite is actually sired by, not this time, was a Albaugh family horse. So a little bit of Iowa connection for the Derby here.
So yeah, we got Epicenter, Messier, Taiba, Zandon, and Mo Donegal seem to be like the 5 or 6 favorites. Tom, where are you putting your money on this Derby?
So I'm pretty biased because in early March, so this is before a lot of the qualifying races. So for the Oaks on Friday, this, not to try to switch off, but Oaks on Friday, probably the most stacked Oaks field. I'm not a horse historian, but let's just say in the last 20 years, easily the most stacked field. Historically, it could go down as one of the greatest Kentucky Oaks. The field is stacked. I mean, there is unbelievable. It'd be scary if you put all the top 5 fillies in the Kentucky Derby. That's how good this Friday race is. So I like a horse on Friday in the Oaks called Hidden Connection, and I liked it, months ago before she had actually qualified for the race. And then there's a horse trained by Brad Cox by the name of Cyberknife. I looked it up last night. I made the bet on March 11th that Hidden Connection to win the Oaks, Cyberknife to win the Derby. And if that double happens, it pays $1,736 for every dollar that I bet. And I bet $20. So I think we're looking at just over $35,000 on a $20 bill if I can get that double home.
So you got, hold on, let's repeat that. So Cyberknife, the odds I'm looking at right now are 22-1 in the Derby, and you got Hidden Connection in the Oaks on Friday. If both of them win, you bet $20, you win over 30 grand.
Over 30, yeah, I think 35,000.
That's the ticket, folks. If you're looking for a bet this weekend, take that.
So you can't bet that, because I made the whole reason I'm getting such a big payout is I made the bet before either horse had qualified for either race. So you can't still place that bet, but those are the types of bets that people should look for. Is how do I go into the race, with positive expected equity here, right? So you can't get that bet. You're probably going to get 120-1, maybe. It could be even lower than that. Well, we're looking at over 1,700-1. but that's like the, as a gambler, those are the spots that you look to put yourself into.
Last time we talked a year ago, it seemed like you were kind of almost getting out of the gambling game a little bit. Unless you had an edge, you weren't needlessly betting like you were before. Have you made any really fun bets over the last 12 months since the last time we spoke?
No. Hopefully this one will be the one that we can tell the story of when it hits here on Saturday. I will say I have listened to some of your podcasts. I think I agree with a lot of your opinions on the sports betting and the different websites. I will say sports betting now, if you are going to get into it, this is the Wild West right now in terms of the amount of free money they give away and promotions. And if someone is going to do it, I would strongly suggest use the free money, get multiple sites going, and take full advantage of all the different promotions. I even see where you can do the promotions and get a lot of free money, like, and play on your bets. And then also, like, if you know somebody else, a lot of times they'll have a like referral program. You refer a friend. Okay, if they bet this much, then you get 100 and they get 100. Well, like, if you go use all the promotions and do all the referrals, and just if you have a few buddies that are bouncing from site to site, I mean, I could see how someone could bet $1,500 of free money and never, like, really put their own money at risk, which you can get a lot of action off of $1,500.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there was a DraftKings 5,000 free bet promotion recently. Wow. And to that point, I feel like the catch there is that now they have not only your information, they have your data, but they're also making the bet that you're not going to stop.
Mm-hmm.
So they're willing to give you the first pack of free cigarettes, knowing that you're going to buy the next 100 in a gas station.
Oh, yeah. And people should know, like, it's right now. So, like, people will become addicted. Not all, but many will. What people have to realize right now is the gambling companies will go to the ends of the earth right now to get that new customer. Because just like you said, they're assuming once you're in, you're there forever. Okay, so if you go in with the mindset of, I'm just here for the free money, right? I'm here for the promotion, and I'm going to bounce after that. Or let's say I win and I'm able to cash it out and move on. If that's your mindset, you could probably be pretty profitable, just because there's so much free money out there. This will all change. Okay. So there will be huge consolidation, right? So if you look at DraftKings, the stock, right? They light hundreds of millions of dollars on money, or hundreds of millions of dollars on marketing every quarter. And so Wall Street's finally like, all right, so you did all this for, customer acquisition. We got to turn a profit eventually, right? And they're having a tough time do that. You've also seen, like, the Win Encore platform. They kind of realize, we don't want to get into that. We don't want to go beat our head against the wall with this. They're trying to sell their platform. There will be heavy consolidation. And in the future, like, don't make the assumption as a player that these promotions are going to be there forever. These are just first time, player stuff. Once the consolidation happens, once this becomes a more mature market, the new player stuff will kind of go away. Plus, you'll probably have been registered and everything at that point. They may start taking care of more of their, like, high rollers or consistent players. But don't think that this is going to last. I would if you are a player, take advantage of this. But again, it comes down to having a plan. Like, no, you're just there for the promotion. You're probably going to move on to the next. And then if you are, like, a steady player and you want to do this, it is important. Once you go and use all this free money, you'll be able to identify which platform you think is the best. And then, just stick with that. Once you've used all the free money, stick with the one that you think is the best and takes the best care of you. But yeah, like we said on the previous one, just be careful. If you're betting for fun, small amounts, if you have an edge, you can't bet enough.
What have you seen from this past year? Because obviously this free money stuff has gotten everybody into the game.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just shocked at the amount of people that continue to bet every day. Like, whenever there's a string of games on, like, it's like, well, I'm only betting $5-10 a game. And it's like, it just seems like just such a bad thing. And I don't know of that many people that are like getting out of it once the free bets happen. It seems like they're continuing to bet. And it's like more office chatter now. Like, you hear people talking in the office about the bets that they're making on the European soccer games during the midweeks and the football and the basketball games throughout the week. And it just seems like that's more water cooler talk, where it used to be kind of backroom, closeted conversation.
Yeah. Like I said, what I have listened to on some of your other podcasts that I agree with is, listen, it is addictive, right? So, and people don't realize that. You have to, when I see like on social media, the betting platforms posting, oh, this guy hit a 8-team in-game parlay and his $100 turned into, 400 grand. It's like, that's really cool. And it is, does it happen? It does. But it's just exactly what we talked about in terms of like winning players, they don't bet, 15 games every NFL Sunday, or, they might bet 2, or 1, or if there isn't anything there that they like, 0. But all they're doing is like the in-game stuff. That is so crazy. Like that is insane. But yeah, all they're doing is they're just increasing your frequency and getting you more. It's like you said, the in-game stuff is like, here's the second pack of cigarettes. You're going to like this even more than the first.
Yeah. It's like party drugs in the middle of a party.
Right.
You're like, hell yeah.
After you already took some earlier.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's funny because every podcast like this too, their main sponsor is a betting platform. Right. Yeah. And same with sports talk radio. They're just everywhere. And I'm constantly surprised that like everybody has just acquiesced to it. Like there's not one podcast out there. Well, I guess the Moonlight Graham Show, we are the one that is just being like, you know what? We're not going to take casino money. We're going to actually talk about how dangerous this is. And I'm not trying to be on a soapbox here. I'm just surprised that we're the only one that's just saying no to it.
Well, and it's funny because like I said, when the amount of marketing dollars that are going into it will literally decline by 75% here, once the consolidation happens. And there'll be, you got to figure there'll be a whole bunch of podcasts that are going to try to follow your steps in terms of saying like, the second they quit paying him, they're going to be like, fuck those guys. This is bad for society anyway. I'm changing my stance, even though I've been, cashing checks for 3 years.
Right. Have you been to Vegas within the last year? How's Vegas doing? Like, I'm sure the casinos are doing just fine.
A year ago, March, I think was the last time I was there. So I haven't been the last year, which usually, it's like 3-4 times a year, but haven't been in over a year. From what I see in terms of like betting pools, World Series of Poker, just stuff. It looks like they're back to just killing it. Like some of the new sports books out there look incredible.
So from your perspective, and maybe you have no idea about this, but have the gambling apps eliminated the bookie though?
No. So even there are sports books now that make, you could, pull a 747 into. I mean, there's now sports books in Vegas that I've heard that new Circa one that has the outdoor swimming pool / sports book.
Right.
Is just absolutely incredible.
I guess what I'm asking though, have they eliminated the illegal bookie?
Oh, so on the smaller level, it hurts them a little bit, right? Most of the bookies tried to get to the bigger players. You start out with like a large pool of players that really kind of de-risks things just because your sample sizes are so big and you've got so much action on each game. There's really no way to lose. But your end game is to get to the whales. The guys that bet 10,000 up to, let's say 100,000 a game, which even Vegas doesn't allow that, right? Like if you go in, there's only a few that, and they're going to need to know, like, they're going to need to know that you're an idiot before they let you bet $100,000 or $200,000 a game. They're going to make sure that you're not some sort of sharp. So there will always be that need for call it illegal bookies, is for the heavier players, just because there's nowhere else that's going to take their action. I had saw even Mattress Mac was trying to make a bet, and he was like texting the Barstool app, and I saw Portnoy was like, well, we've got to take his action. This is crazy. why we wouldn't. I think he wanted to place $2 or $3 million bet, and I think I had saw that he ended up having to go somewhere else. Just because they were saying, well, it's a futures bet, so this is our exposure. But really they should just take everything. I mean, unless they're a known sharp, they should be taking everything. But again, there will always be a need for the bookies on the larger players.
Is Mattress Mac an idiot, or is that guy like a closet genius? I shouldn't even say closet. He's not in the closet on anything. He's out in front, but it seems like the amount of money he's throwing around all the time is insane.
I think he's probably a marketing genius. I really do. I've never been to one of his stores in Houston area. But I do know when he first started doing it, I mean, I think he was pretty well picking his number being like completely hedged, meaning, okay, if they lose, I'm going to be out $6 million, because I've got to give free mattresses or free couches or whatever. And so if the team's 3-1 and he puts $2 million on it, I think it's just like his actual hedge, to put on these massive marketing campaigns.
Right. And any loss you could contribute it to. It's like, that's my marketing.
Right.
But so I ended up losing $200,000, but I got $4 million worth of marketing exposure out of it.
Yeah. And the only thing that I've seen where he may not be as smart as we think is like the amount of marketing behind. So Run Happy, who's like a nice sire in horse racing, was the Breeders' Cup champ. He owned, and he's a nice sire, but talk about marketing. I mean, every commercial, every sign, when you see over like shots of the different racetracks at Santa Anita or wherever in the country, there's Run Happy signs everywhere. Like the most, over marketed sire of all time. Now, the amount of money they have behind it has got to be more than what they're making off the sire. But again, horse racing for these guys isn't about making money.
So Tom, I guess to wrap things up here, who is your pick? We talked about, the Cyberknife and the bet on the Oaks on Friday, but who's your pick to win it if you're just looking for a winner?
I really haven't gotten my mind off of Cyberknife just because I'm if I can get Hidden Connection home on Friday, I won't, it's going to be quite the sweat for Saturday. I'm looking at my list right here to see if there's something I could really, really sell you on. So Epicenter will go off as either the favorite or second favorite. Honestly, the only knock that I have on that horse is his trip in the Louisiana Derby was so easy and like no dirt in the face, never got bumped. It couldn't have went as smooth as, it was perfect. That's literally the only knock that I have is that, he did too well,
Yeah.
let's see here.
Well, I guess for our audience too, the next kind of two I'm seeing after Epicenter are those two quote unquote Baffert horses. So let's just tell everybody to put their money. If you're betting on the Derby, don't put them on Taiba. And then who's the other one?
Messier. So last year, we basically said most likely to make money is you put it on the two Baffert horses. I'm going to say that we're going to stay away from the Baffert horses this year. I would, maybe look for a price. So charge it. The Florida Derby was like the slowest Florida Derby in the last 10 years. He got second. He's a Pletcher horse. Anytime Pletcher's bringing somebody in, he was really green last time out, like, running left and right rather than straight down the lane, but he was closing on the winner. That's one to maybe take a look at. And then I don't know, there's some of these that I really don't want to do, but Tis the Bomb's going to be a big price. That may be one to look at. I'm gonna be there, so I'm just hoping that it's either a big price or Cyberknife.
When you say you're going to be there, you're going to be at the Derby?
Yeah.
What are you wearing?
I got a couple different suits, not too flashy. Friday, you want to wear a little bit of pink in your wardrobe. They do like a breast cancer fundraising thing, a lot of pink on Fridays. And then Saturday, I tell people, it's impossible to be overdressed at the Derby. So, and also just go crazy, because no matter how ridiculous, your suit is, it'll fit right in.
So what color is the Saturday suit?
I don't even know what you would call it. It's not like silver and it's not like blue. It's kind of like in between. The Fridays is like a navy-ish / maybe a little purple in there. I don't know what you would call that color either.
Is there going to be a hat? Is there going to be a pocket square? What else is going on here?
Little pocket square. No, we've got all guys trip this time. So we're actually flying out of Des Moines, stopping to pick a couple guys up in Chicago, and then heading down. So we actually don't get there till Friday morning, and then do the 2 days and go home Sunday. So
hat or no hat?
No hat for me. No. I mean, when you have hair this good looking, you're not.
I was gonna say that. Are you dyeing the hair? I mean, it's still looking as black as ever.
Every day, not every day. Yeah, every cut. I mean, have to, right? Self-confidence, just throw it out the window if you're wearing grays.
Well, we'll end on that, Tom. You are the horse racing guy here on the Moonlight Graham Show. Enjoy the Derby. Thanks for your time, and enjoy fatherhood.
All right, go Cyberknife.
Thank you for listening to today's episode with the great Tom Hagan. And if you're getting into the Derby and you're looking to put some money on the Derby this weekend, like the great Tom Hagan said, put your money on maybe an Iowa horse or a horse with Iowa ties. So, of course, Mo Donegal is the Iowa horse from Donegal Racing in the Kentucky Derby this weekend. Donegal Racing, most of their ownership group is based out of central Iowa, namely Des Moines, Iowa. So that'd be a good one to look at if you can get some good odds on Mo Donegal. There's also an Albaugh family horse. Of course, Denny Albaugh is located in Ankeny, Iowa. I believe he is the father of the favorite in the race. And so look at that one as well. So if you're one of those people that likes to put money on one of the horses, try to pick the winner of the Derby, look at the horses with Iowa ties. That would be my recommendation. I, of course, am going to sit out from gambling. It's not something that I necessarily do. When I do gamble, I get into it just a little bit too much. So it's probably not a healthy thing for me to do. So I'm going to sit this one out. But look at the horses with Iowa ties. I think that's the best place to put your money this weekend. Of course, thank you guys for listening to today's episode. Thank you to the Moonlight Graham Show team, my brothers Andy and Neil, Brendan Gargano, who helps us out with all the artwork, Tommy Griffin, who's the best co-host and does all of our episode write-ups, and of course, Brian Samvik, who does all of the back-end production of the Moonlight Graham Show. Thank you guys for all the help, and thank you, the Moonlighters, for listening. Have a great week, Moonlighters.
It's Moonlight Graham, yeah! It's a pretty good program, broadcasting to the heartland. Sports stories for the everyman. It's Moonlight Graham, yeah. Please follow us on Instagram. You're loving us on Twitter too. You download every pod we do. It's Moonlight Graham.